So maybe we'll do this, just this little abbreviated thing.
We'll just have a music.
And then start right into it. Cool. I like
Welcome
it.
to the Grappling With Podcast. Dr. Chris Hardy and William Walker will take a deep dive into topics covering wellness and prevention, performance, recovery, and injury management. Our mission is to provide the latest science-based information to help you get the most out of your grappling journey, both on and off the mats, and help you overcome any challenges you may be grappling with. Dr. Hardy is a licensed physician and BJJ practitioner, but the contents of the podcast are meant for educational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Please seek out personalized care from your own medical provider prior to implementing any medical treatment or intervention.
Bill is a licensed buffoon. He says things that are a little squirrely. Do not hold these things against his gym mates, his family, Chris Hardy, Harry Hardy, or anybody at his gym.
Man.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
I'm a new man.
We'll see how it goes. That's awesome, man. So sorry, everyone. Missed last week. It was my fault. I had a medical procedure. Right in our prime.
Snip.
You know what? Oh, no, that would happen long ago.
No, I'm talking about your testicles.
No,
They're gone.
no, they're still there.
I looked.
Yeah. That's going to be great for the algorithm, too, by the way.
They don't know what I'm talking about.
So, yeah, and it's hard for us to get, when we get outside of our window here of time, it's really hard to find time to do it. So sorry, everyone. I actually had something related to jiu-jitsu, an injury. I had that frozen shoulder I've been dealing with for about 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what you were doing?
Mm-hmm. Oh. And then one of my colleagues stuck a big needle in my shoulder capsule under ultrasound guidance and put 30 cc's of fluid in there to dilate the capsule.
What is frozen shoulder exactly?
Adhesive capsulitis. It's a really interesting thing because we still don't fully understand it. The bottom line is, and sometimes it happens without an injury too, just comes out of nowhere on people. Usually those people are, usually those people have some kind of inflammatory or endocrine thing going on. Usually diabetics and even hypothyroid, you can have spontaneous frozen shoulder. Oh. Mine was due to an injury from a overzealous Americana that some visiting purple belt at the time did to my arm. You just gripped it.
You've been dealing with this a long time. 5 years now.
Yeah. And I've gotten improvement with the range of motion, but it's been a liability for so long. As you know, someone grabs that shoulder, I tap very quickly.
I actually was rolling with someone a week or two ago. I dropped into a gym, and the guy's 53 black belt. So
like me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had him in like a crucifix, like a T Kimura kind of situation. Mm-hmm. And I like to arm lock like Americana with my legs on the far side.
Yep. Where you hip it.
Yeah, you shovel your hips.
Shovel your hips. Absolutely. I love that one.
And I just started the movement.
Yep.
And he had to verbally tap.
Yep.
I didn't know he had a frozen shoulder.
Just like me.
Yep. And essentially, for audio listeners, but I'll try to walk it through. But if, let's say you're kind of chicken winging out, like your elbow's coming away from your ribs.
We call that abduction.
There you go. Mm-hmm. And as my elbow comes up to make essentially a straight line, so it's at my shoulder line.
Right.
Imagine a Kimura position. Frozen shoulder, you can't even get there a lot of the time.
Well,
depending, I assume.
True. So I can talk about, but go ahead.
As soon as his elbow came up to his shoulder line, he had to verbally tap immediately.
Yep.
Now, it wasn't in a Kimura position, it was an Americana position.
Yep.
So his hand was above his head.
Yep.
And as soon as that elbow came from his ribs and I started shoveling and his elbow started coming up towards his shoulder line, he said he had to stop for
shoulder presses then.
Oh, no.
No, I can't. I have yet to do shoulder press in 5 years on my left arm.
Dang.
Yeah.
So frozen shoulder, the shoulder capsule overlies what's called the glenohumeral joint, where the head of the humerus, the arm bone, fits into the shoulder socket. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the capsule's that fibrous covering over there that is embedded, the rotator cuff tendons are embedded with the capsule. Mm-hmm. They're kind of contiguous with it. And with frozen shoulder, think about and this is not exactly how, but just visually think of this. It's sticky inside, and you have scar tissue inside the capsule that is preventing rotation of that ball and socket joint, right? It's locked down into certain places from adhesions. That's why it's called adhesive capsulitis.
Yeah.
But there's also a neurological phenomenon too, because what's interesting is average, it usually lasts for about a year and a half to 3 years. And there's a freezing phase, a frozen phase, and then what they call a thawing phase.
Okay.
I know. It just to play on the frozen shoulder thing. Well, what's interesting is, and I've gotten a lot better. I've pretty much got, well, not normal, but a lot better as far as my range of motion. But I still, like you were talking about, like my fellow 53-year-old black belt, external rotation, which is that Americana position, internal rotation, the Kimura.
Okay.
Abduction, which is bringing that arm out to the side, right? So globally, those are the big three. I have some flexion problems too, but
which is where your arm's in front of you.
In front of you, and you come up. Exactly. Okay. So the difference between frozen shoulder and other shoulder problems is active range of motion and passive range of motion are both restricted. So in other words, if I test you and I say, hey, Bill, lift your shoulder, that's active range of motion. But if I take you and relax you on the table and then passively move your shoulder, it's still restricted.
Okay.
So there's some treatments for it. One of the most aggressive ones is manipulation under anesthesia, where they actually put you out under anesthesia and they manipulate the shoulder. And it's kind of brutal.
Break up the...
Right.
Damn.
What I tried to do is have them stick a needle in there and dilate the capsule from the inside out with a bunch of fluid. It was interesting.
Yeah.
It felt like someone was blowing up a balloon inside my shoulder. So it felt
weird,
like
odd pressure.
Weird pressure. The guy is excellent that did it. One of my colleagues, I won't share his name because I didn't tell him. But anyway, I think I've already gotten maybe about 10 more degrees. So I think it was partially successful, but it's a very frustrating thing to deal with.
Is there some like passive stuff you can do at home to try
man, there is. And I've been doing all the stuff for 5 years now, and I have made improvement, but I just hit a wall where I just wouldn't get it anymore. And it's frustrating because where I usually can escape a submission, you've rolled with me where you grab that shoulder and I'm like, yeah, I'm just,
especially when I go for like, there's some specific moves, kind of what's called the Choi bar.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's an arm lock, but it puts a little bit more pressure on the shoulder.
Yep.
Than that
elbow. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
Or any kind of Kimura, Americana especially, because that's how it was injured.
So, but we've had it where I know we've been rolling. I attempt a submission on that arm, and you tap, but you're like, I'd actually kind of loosened it or something. Like there will be some times where you're like, it actually kind of broke it free a little bit. What is that?
I don't know.
You just giving me like,
I'm thinking in my, I was like, okay, it wasn't that, I'm just,
because I always feel bad when I always forget what shoulder it is.
Yeah. So. And you shouldn't. It's my job to protect myself as a black belt. You know what I mean?
That's what what the other black belt said.
Yeah, it's my job. Yeah. It's my job to tap. You should roll like you want to roll, because everybody in our gym, I'm not worried about them gripping and ripping something to submission. They'll grab it and then slowly kind of pop it in place.
Right.
Anyway, that was interesting. We'll see what happens with that. I also, I think of note, I'm down about 5 pounds.
Ooh.
I'm right under 180
I've
right
been
now.
Noticing your hips are a little better.
They're a little
not like, movement wise, but visually.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're looking.
I'm taking notice.
Yeah. So, but I've been Carrie and I really switched over to carnivore pretty strictly, just doing meat, some fruit, and then some tubers, like, some sweet potato type stuff, but that's about it.
What was tubers?
A tuber is a type of, like a root vegetable, or tuber, like a potato.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where does that name come from? Word?
I don't know. It's the
is it slang?
It's the word that the people that classify plants use. There's roots, tubers. There's different types of edible plants. Yeah. If Olivia looks up tuber, she can tell you exactly what the definition is.
Come up with something.
TUBER. Yeah.
Sounds like it could be maybe not good for the internet.
It might not be.
Look out.
So, but there's that. And lastly, I think what I also wanted to mention, I know we got some other stuff to talk about though, but I've been playing a ton of guitar lately. back, I always play, but I've really gotten it. And I feel like it's something interesting to talk about, whether it's getting into a musical instrument or let's say like woodworking or something that where you can really get into that zone.
So people know our intro music and outro is all you.
Oh, well, yeah. Thank you. I don't like to brag.
Give a little, do a bell, please. Ding.
Ding. Yeah. But I'm actually writing some new stuff that I'll give you, and we might, intersperse it throughout the podcast. But my point of that is, I think it's valuable to have another outlet like that. So especially those of us like myself and you that are obsessed with jiu-jitsu, I feel like after, when I really turn on that side of my brain and I come back to jiu-jitsu, it feels even more fresh. Sometimes you can get kind of that burnout type of thing going. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So, that's something, whatever your other hobby is where you can really get into, I think that's something, everyone should kind of look into to kind of balance that out a little bit. I think it really helps the brain too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I fell into like basically my only other hobby was judo.
Yeah.
It was like
they're fairly related.
If I wasn't watching jiu-jitsu, I was watching judo. But at the same time, my career is kind of a hobby.
It totally is for you.
Like I just happen to be able to make money and buy my groceries.
That's such a good point. But it's the same type of thing for you.
Yeah.
So I think that balances you out pretty well.
Well, he's smiling.
Okay, so tuber, a much thickened underground part of a stem or a rhizome. But what's funny is it also means a rounded swelling or protuberant. Remember protuberance?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Protuberance.
Nope.
It's like your gut.
Bill.
It's like your belly.
Bill. Protuberance.
You're
I
saying
have a protuberance on my elbow.
More and more, and it's getting worse. I don't remember it.
The Office, when Michael...
Oh.
He says
now
protuberance.
I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, you should be embarrassed. How dare you? I thought you would have got that.
Damn it.
Typically, though, we talk about if you look at when you dig a potato up, that's it. You pull it out of the ground. It's the swelling of the rhizome or root. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so Anyway, that's enough of my pontificating.
Well, there's been some news lately in the old jiu-jitsu community, and our friends at the IBJJF have started a little bit of a fire. Now, I will admit, when I first read this news release, I read it wrong, so I was like real spicy right out the gate. But IBJJF released new guidelines to their gi and no gi attire that is allowed, and people that have competed, that IBJJF has the strictest gi policy. There's only 3 colors you can have: white, black, or a royal blue style. You can't have like typically a really dark blue or a gray or anything like that, let alone some of the other brighter colors that other tournaments allow. They have a certain length guidelines, which pretty much everyone abides by.
Sure.
And then they're pretty strict on how the condition of the gi. So your belt can't have any sort of tears or any fraying or anything like that. Same with the gi.
I get that. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, the belt thing I don't really understand as much,
but the gi for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I know you don't want to have a hole because a finger can get put in there or something like that. But they're just typically a little bit more strict about checking in the first place, rather than some tournaments, they don't even check. But what they came out with was some new guidelines that I do wonder how they're going to check this or if they actually will. But for example, one of the big ones that is really putting a fire up some people's butts is there's a new weight limit. So gis, as you know, are measured in GSM, right? So I think that's like the stitch thickness or something like that.
Does it mean grams per square meter?
Maybe
Meter or something like that.
So
I don't know what it means.
So typically, the higher the number is when you get those real thick gis, almost like a judo gi. You can get into that 500-600 GSM. Those are really thick, double weave, and then you get into what a lot of people like is the really light comp, quote unquote, gis, ultralights. That's when you get into your 300, 280, 250 GSM. Most gis, I would say, float around that kind of 400 a lot of the time, unless it's those ultralight gis. And people, the reason why they get those ultralights is because they want to have as little weight on them as possible so they don't have to cut that weight off their body. Right.
Of course. That makes sense.
Because we weigh in with the gi typically.
And during summertime,
it's nice having a lighter gi.
It just is. Yeah.
Now, longevity comes into play. If you're someone that trains a lot, you don't want to only train in ultralights because you will blow through them faster.
That's your call, though.
Yeah. It's just something to kind of know. If you're someone that's like, well, I train 4 or 5 times a week and you're rocking 2 or 3 ultralights, you're probably going to blow through that actually kind of quick, especially if you're someone that machine dries. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Anyways, they raised the limit on the weight. So they raised it to 380 is the lightest, if you will, GSM. So 380 GSM is the lightest.
Did they give a reason?
No, it's just a press release of this is now this. Okay. Which is kind of one of the bugaboos that I have with IBJJF is they never really give a reason. It's typically just this is the final thing.
And here's our mandate.
Yes, very government style. And then they also changed the gis have to show 2 tag locations, has to show the GSM weight. So at the collar and the inside, and then on the inside of the left lapel.
You know why this is already pissing me off?
Why?
We just talked about the freaking the damn wipes.
Yeah.
That had to be labeled "Do not flush."
Right.
You know, this is the nanny state nonsense.
Right. And so obviously it's, if you have that tag on the inside of the left lapel, that it's pretty easy to check. They do have a regulation already that of a weight. So you can't wear a 200 GSM technically. I've never been checked on the weight of my gi. Maybe because I think my lightest one is 280. But maybe if while they're checking your length, they're like, this seems a little thin. Maybe that's when they would check it. But I've never been checked. But if they're putting it out there as a press release, as this is a sticking point, then it makes me think that they're going to change it. Now, why is that much of a big deal? Well, if you don't have a gi, now they're forcing us to buy a new gi. Number 2, they're forcing manufacturers, because I looked at my 8 gis, and I don't have a single one. And I have tatami, Kings, show you roll, our own personal Cascade gis, which a lot of gyms have. They buy their own gis. They don't buy a Moya and then patch them up.
Right.
They, go through some vendor and do it themselves.
A War Tribe doesn't either.
Right.
It's one of my gis.
I have Moya as well. And none of these brands. Now, I do know it, because I thought, now I could be wrong, I remember I had one gi that was a tatami that did have the GSM on the tag. I feel like I remember seeing it, but I couldn't find one in my current rotation. So now we're forcing vendors and gi manufacturers, which some of these are not like, they appear to be big companies, but they're not.
No.
Like, these are still smaller companies. Now we're forcing them to change stuff.
Let me tell you, I don't think the profit margins are very high anyway.
No. I mean, you might have your show your roll, which they're, making a decent amount per gi. Sure. You have your Origin, but the thing is, what sets Origin apart is they're completely made here in America.
They sure are.
So show your roll is not. Show your roll is made in the same Pakistani manufacturing plant that Tatami and the others are made. There's like 3 over there, and they're all made of the same one. So we're forcing these companies to actually change all these. Now this goes into effect in 2024. There's another thing that's a bugaboo, because we just bought a new tatami gi not too long ago, matching, of course, and on your left lapel, a lot of the time in the bottom of the lapel, there's a little patch.
Yep.
And it has to be a certain size for IBJJF. And I think there is a standard. It's like a square 8 centimeters, I believe it is. Well, sometimes a lot of gis now have a branded patch right above it on the lapel. So you'll have your little square at the bottom, and then you'll have maybe a tatami patch right above that. That's not allowed anymore. You can't have that patch there.
So, yeah, these kind of not telling us why, the rationale. So here's one thing I can see when we talk about gi regulations: ability to grip the thing, right? Do any of those patches interfere with, first of all, your ability to
Not at all.
get grip? Exactly.
Yeah.
I've rolled with a bunch of people with ultralight gis. It does not affect my grips on them.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, sometimes I feel like it actually helps a little bit depending on what type it is. We have a bunch of people pushing the envelope on technology with textiles, trying to make lighter and stronger things. So I want to know what the rationale is. You're basically doing that. You're going to stop innovation, right?
Yeah.
Or people are going to be like, well, screw IBJJF. I'm just going to go to the other competitors like Grappling Industries, ADCC. Apparently, is going to start doing gi.
Well, Mo Jassim, the head coordinator at ADCC, has said that he's. It was a month ago. I was on his Instagram Live, and people were asking him, like, would you ever get into gi? And he's like, I think I might. He is not a fan of how much IBJJF, how they run things financially.
Yeah.
And monetarily for the athletes. And he's like, the culture has to change in the landscape of jiu-jitsu. And part of the way to do that is eat for a while, don't make money as a tournament organizer.
Right.
Dang, I just swore. Trying not to swear because of the algorithm. But trying to live marked on that time. So he's saying he might actually not make any money and just try to get in the gi scene, and he's like really considering it.
Well, the free market's a wonderful thing because I think I'm suspecting like the IBJJF folks are living in their little bubble, and it's like, hey, things are moving on. If you're gonna create things now, if a rule makes sense and like, hey, this is why we're doing this is, and we're like, oh yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. But if you're just putting out these little mandates from on high, people just pisses people off, and for all the reasons you just outlined. Yeah. So
I thought I had read that they are not allowing embroidery on your belt anymore, but they aren't, but in certain locations. So. Like I have a custom belt with some embroidery on. I think you do too.
I do too.
At first I read it as you can't have that because it says no embroidery on your belt, but it's no embroidery unless it's on the outside of the knot. So when you tie your belt, you have the two ends of the lapel.
Let me see the scientific data on how embroidery interferes with the tying of the knot.
Yeah.
I can tell you I don't think so.
So like you can't have embroidery on the inside, like if it was at the small of your back, like exactly stuff that you're just like, what?
Dude. So they're gonna be the architect of their own demise.
Well, I think I can just imagine they go down the same path as the UFC, and that's you will have to buy an IBJJF gi. They will do some sort of deal with Fuji or whoever, and it's because right now, like for example with no gi, it's even more strict. Like the rash guard companies have to make their rash guards. It's like 75% of the belt color that they are. So like a blue belt, like 75% of the rash guard has to be blue, right? And then other than that, it can only have black or white on it.
Okay. Yeah,
So I imagine I could imagine it going down that road.
People are going to take their money elsewhere.
Yeah,
especially after more competitions come up that are well run.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's the one thing IBJJF has is they run a good tournament.
Yep.
Absolutely. But other than that,
I've been to some. I can tell you one of the best run tournaments I've been to is our local one here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah,
the Jeff runs.
Yeah, the Revolution.
So okay.
Yeah. I was just gonna say I was looking online at some of the other changes, and somebody said with the sleeve, skirt, and pant cuff reinforcements can be no more than 2.5 centimeters, which is just under 1 inch, and that things like A&P or inverted gear, those gis would be illegal because their reinforcements are about 2 to 2.5 inches.
Well, I have a Moya gi, my black Moya gi, that has reinforcements. Means on the outside it looks normal, but on the inside of, let's say, your sleeve, even at just the cuff area, that let's say about, I think 4 or 5 inches, one of my Moya gis has an extra lining in there just for rip protection and stuff like that. I accidentally put that gi on inside out one time, and I was like, why does this gi feel so weird? Because it was inside out, and it's like, oh geez, I didn't even realize that was in there. And until I put it on, I wore it inside out, and so that would now be illegal.
Or that length. And wouldn't that suggest then that there's going to be more gis ripping then, if that reinforcement isn't as?
I mean, maybe that's why they're like, oh, thick. Up to GSM length or something. The thing is, I've seen,
like, there's no reason for changing all of these things. Like,
gis don't tear that often.
I know,
especially in the pro scene when they're being gifted gis, and like a lot of time they wear fresh, brand new ones because they got new patches, new sponsors. But like, you don't see gis tear that often.
And when they do, it's pretty much you can look at them and say, yeah, you need to retire that one.
Right.
In general.
And if gis tearing was an issue in the super ultra heavyweights and super heavyweights, we would see it every tournament.
That's a great point.
And with the amount of power that these guys are achieving.
Yeah. The strength of these fibers now, these manufacturing processes is amazing.
And the big thing the big bugaboo with people online is, why are we focused on this? The IBJJF has so many things they got to work on.
This is exactly what I'm talking about.
And they're releasing a big thing about their gis.
You know what it's like? It's like the federal government. Yes. They're regulating some nonsense. And you're like, well, what about freaking this over here? You know
turtles.
What I mean? Yeah. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. This isn't good for them. Yeah.
I saw like a comment. It was like, IBJJF and gis, they pull out the microscope, but with the PEDs, they put on their sunglasses and walk away.
Yeah, no shit.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I just slipped that one, but yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And Cyborg still, he'll be competing no time.
Interesting.
It's wild. So
it's wild.
That's in the IBJJF world. What's going on? Call me a hater.
I wish them luck.
No. Olivia, you had something?
Should I next topic or my question?
Why don't you hit that meat topic?
Okay.
Here we go.
Chris. Is processed meat really bad for you? And if it is, why? And if it has to do with nitrates and that it's nitrate free, is it still bad for you?
So all that stuff that's put into processed meat is there to preserve it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like bacon, sausage, deli meats.
No, well, and there's ways to preserve. There's salting. There's ways to traditionally preserve meats. I would argue that any of the stuff, I don't care. They'll advertise something as nitrate free. High amounts of that over time. There has been correlates to like gastric cancers and stuff like that.
Are those the same as anal nitrates?
Anal.
No.
I knew you were going there.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's different. That's okay though.
We'll talk about those in another episode.
Amyl nitrate is
the anal nitrates. Yeah.
That's the anal nitrate. Here we go again. I thought we got past this from when I corrected you the first time.
It's an M, Bill.
Amyl. No,
ma'am.
So, in general, it's like anything else processed. Your body has to deal with whatever it is, and they can say, if you look on the package, nitrate free. Yeah, what else did they put in there in place of it? You still got to put something in there. I'd have to look at each individual thing to kind of say what chemical are they putting in there, right?
So it's not the meat; it's the preservatives that they're putting in.
Of course. Yeah.
See, you know what? I was telling Bill this the other day, and I was like, I feel like whenever we look at like processed foods, we're always thinking like they always point out like the sugar content and stuff like that, and like the oils. But I'm like, nobody talks about the preservatives, and I feel like the preservatives are where, like, not saying that soybean oil or fructose corn syrup aren't an issue, but it's all this other little bull crap that's in there that I think is also causing major issues.
Oh, for sure. Even like food dyes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen them take salmon and make them pink?
I've heard of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of, I'm not going to use the word because we're going to get our algorithm. There's all kinds of nonsense going on, shenanigans going on. And there's actually a whole industry of flavorists that put stuff into these processed foods to hit our dopamine in our brain, our whole reward systems. You know, that's why people crave, I need a McDonald's hamburger. What is it about that? It's a bun and meat, right? No. Yeah. There's a lot of other things in there that are hitting those reward systems while people are craving.
Just did an interesting video on the French fries at McDonald's.
Yep.
About the stuff that's like in them and like the Play-Doh. There's a chemical that's in Play-Doh that's in French.
Yeah, that's my point. So all these, you're taking a food, and some of these aren't even foods anymore, but as far as a processed meat, you're adding things in there to preserve them for shelf life. It's exactly what you're doing for convenience. And your liver has to deal with all the stuff. Remember we had that whole talk about that whole detox system So, you know, none of that stuff is good for you. And so that's why, you know, we talk about real food. I mean, I don't care if you want, because more of a carnivore thing works for me doesn't mean it works for everyone. Sure. But at least you can go with more of real food sources, right? Not in the middle part of the store where you have boxes of stuff and packages of stuff,
right?
Just so people know what is considered a processed meat.
Anything can
as
be.
In that's like that falls into that category of like the preservatives.
Anything can be. It doesn't have to be a specific meat. You can and put in anything. The worst, you look at the hot dogs they sell. Mm-hmm. That's a rough concoction.
You're eating a lot of pig ass.
Well, it's not just the inferiority of the meat cuts, right? Which is it's basically the leftover just kind of ground, and who knows what actually is in there.
You ever had the ones where there's cheese?
No, I don't eat any of that stuff.
Neither do I.
I have had
I don't even look at it.
I've had a hot dog aversion since I was a kid.
So you're saying corn dogs are bad.
Watch your tone.
They're not.
What if there's a pickle around the hot dog?
Perfect. It's like the Diet Coke. It cancels out everything else.
Good.
Hey.
You're good to go. Yeah. So
there's hot dogs that are flavored chili cheese.
Look, I'm not denying the stuff tastes really good, and that's why people are hooked on it.
Just saying, put some respect on the hot dog's name.
It's just really bad for you.
Okay, so bacon, hot dogs, sausage.
Well, not all bacon.
Not all bacon.
No, because I can go down to our local butcher here.
That's pretty much your best guarantee of getting a quality meat, right?
Absolutely, and you can ask them, hey, how do you cure your bacon? What do you do here to your bacon? They'll tell you. They make the stuff right there.
What's the safe stuff?
Right.
Salt?
Yeah.
Just salt?
Mm-hmm. And the shelf life isn't, you can't leave those things in there in a package forever.
Yeah.
They have a shelf life, right? A fairly quick one. So
does, maybe an ignorant question here, but organic, does that have anything to do with?
No.
Okay.
No. Now you just don't have pesticides in there.
Okay.
Yeah. You could, never mind. I want to say, I could make an organic piece of plastic. I mean,
could you?
Yeah, probably.
Could you milk me?
No.
All right.
Could you milk me, fucker?
Yeah, I got plastics in me.
Yes, you do.
Stop it.
Yeah. Probably a short perineum too.
Oh, you talked about my perineum again.
He was born before the timeline.
Yeah.
He was. You're okay.
You
You're
can
safe.
vouch. I got a huge perineum.
Oh my gosh. I do not vouch for anything.
I think there's some denial.
Yeah. Carrie would not say that about him, and he's got a small perineum.
So I'm not usually inspecting that part of your body.
Oh my. Oh, right. This is getting spicy. I like it. No, but
Hi, Mom.
yeah, organic.
Love you.
You can make organic nonsense too, just because it doesn't necessarily mean healthy. It's
That's
like gluten free.
These certain chemicals they're saying by saying organic means it doesn't have this set, but it doesn't mean this.
So
set.
let's say that I have a packaged cracker, and let's say the flour we made that packaged cracker is from an organic operation. Doesn't mean that packaged cracker is good for you.
Right.
What else is in there? I don't know. But as far as the growing of the wheat or whatever they're going to use, they use organic processes for. So yeah, sure, you'll have less pesticide residues and things like that. But again, that whole thing has become a scam too. That's a great conversation to have as well about the organic certification of farms, where there's a big paywall behind that, where to get certified USDA organic costs a lot of money, and a lot of these small farm operations don't have the capability to do that, even though they probably are doing a better job, even though they don't have that certified organic thing, but they're using all the practices. So just knowing where your food comes from is really important.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
When you ask these actually, before you ask these next ones, we had a couple emails come in. We talked about Billy Bob. I think the last
was
episode.
this the testosterone when he's getting fleeced?
Yeah, and he's like, we gave him some advice, but we did ask some.
Yeah, where are you located?
questions,
Type of thing, that kind of thing.
He's actually located in Louisiana, and
It's unfortunate.
yeah, and. We actually got another email from someone else that also lives in Louisiana, just outside New Orleans. We're going to touch on both of those because they're both TRT related and even some fertility stuff in there. So I know they're probably listening. The next episode, we're going to do a little deeper dive and spend some time on this because we seem to be getting a lot more questions.
Yeah, and having Carrie available would be nice too.
We're going to see if we can have Carrie on as well so we can that's obviously her wheelhouse. So if it makes sense, we'll have her on and we'll really deep dive on both these questions.
Just real quick, sorry guys, you live there. That's where all my relatives are from. It's a backward state for medical regulation, completely backwards, and probably the worst in the nation. And I can go in. I'm just telling you,
you're gonna die.
No, it's just a real problem for many reasons, and I can go into some of their ridiculousness. It just.
I'm sure we will.
We can go. Yeah, we can. But sorry, guys, that's where you're trying to do this from. It's challenging.
But there is some questions within your guys' emails there, so we will go over those on the next episode.
Yep.
So, Liv?
Alrighty.
Hot question?
Yes. So, let's say you've joined a new gym. You're a white belt, or maybe you're not a white belt, but how would someone know who's safe to train with? And then the second question would be, if the gym that you've started going to doesn't point that out to you, as in there's nobody there who just willingly comes up and be like, hey, this person's safe, how do you bring that up?
That's difficult because depending if you're new to a gym, that people may really be offended by that question. They could.
Who's safe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, possibly you could be like, hey, who are you? You're just coming into our gym. Right. How are you going to ask me who's safe?
Yeah.
I'm not saying not to.
Right.
I'm just saying that can, depending on who you ask,
Let's say it's been a couple months.
Okay. Well, I would sit there and I would watch yourself. You are the best kind of litmus test for who you think is safe for you, because watch people roll. watch people roll at different belt levels. Take time watching and see if someone seems uncontrolled. That's the biggest thing Now, if someone's just getting smushed, but there's not uncontrolled good technique, there's just people that are tough rolls. That's one thing. And we talked about this before. But you should be able to sit back and watch. The biggest thing is watching uncontrolled body weight, just really explosive people that are just like going for it.
Yeah.
Where you've that you can tell when someone is
flopping around.
Yeah, not a lot of control.
Yeah.
Especially if someone is very big and strong and athletic. I would you don't even have to ask someone. You can kind of make your own assessment because ultimately it comes down to who you feel comfortable with. And over time, you may be more and more comfortable with different people. So I don't know how now if you've developed a friendship with someone that you trust and they're kind of the same kind of mentality you think that you have, like, hey, I'm really interested in this. I really don't want to get hurt. Is there anybody you would maybe that I should stay away from?
Who's a good role or who isn't?
Yeah.
Ask both.
For sure.
Yeah. I'd echo
that's a good question.
Everything you said. I would absolutely. I think sitting there and observing yourself. Now it can be difficult if you are newer to jiu-jitsu. It's because you don't really understand what the hell's going on. But just kind of how you explained it, how flopping, dynamic movement, ballistic movements, super high intensity, not a lot of playfulness. Yeah, grunting and stuff. Like zero playfulness to the round. Like I know sometimes, of course, there's not always like playfulness, but I know when like I'm having a hard round with someone, a normal training partner, we can like laugh during it as well.
Totally.
Like it's not a actual fight or flight situation.
Especially if you catch me in one of your BS moves.
I mean, then I'm laughing in your face.
I'm laughing too because I'm like, I can't believe you copying that nonsense.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
So, that's a good way is to just, especially if you're trying a new gym, maybe you've grappled a little bit, 3, 6 months, a year, whatever. You're a blue belt, who knows? You don't have to spar right away. Nope. You can just take note, inventory, especially if it's a newer environment. I think definitely trying to ask upper belts the question of who's a safe role, would you say? Or who's a little spazzy? I think asking who the safe role is probably the better one because if you ask who's spazzy, they could be like, well, no one's spazzy in our gym.
Exactly.
That's what I was getting at.
And I would ask multiple upper belts. Also, if I'm trying a new place, I would not roll with white belts, especially if you are a smaller person, a female. Maybe you are just starting your journey.
Older.
If you're older, or you're starting your journey and you are on the side of the spectrum of intensity that is low, as in you haven't got to the point where you're the dog in you. You're not able to tap that yet. You hope to. You want to be a savage. You want to be able to just get after it, but you're not quite there yet. And you know it. You have that internal dialogue. You know it. So going with the white belts could be dangerous for you.
It can be.
Simple. Going with upper belts can be too. But if we're talking about a percentage of danger, the white belt's just going to have, there's more that can go wrong there. Because as you get higher in skill, that upper belt basically can look out for themselves, but they can also look out for you.
Yep.
So when you are putting yourself in a dumb spot or a bad spot, they can actually do things. I mean, I just
talked about this in our last podcast.
Yeah, when I got injured,
where you were with our professor.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I was saying,
when you bailed from
when my arm got hurt.
That, and also you got caught with remember that one with your neck?
The omoplata, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Both scenarios, 2 different black belts. Both times I put myself in as a black belt in a bad position. And both times the only reason I didn't get catastrophically hurt is because I was going with a black belt in both occasions.
Very skillful ones.
Yeah,
exactly.
that recognized the moment that when I yelped, they were able to release their body pressure and their position in a intelligent way. So, because there's times where if you release pressure, it actually can make a position worse.
That's right. And that just comes with years on the mats.
Yeah.
Of having that instinct, what to do.
Yeah,
right?
and it's hard to give the guy that wrist locked me credit, but I'm doing it.
You should.
But I will not say his name. So, in the beginning saying, I'm not going to roll the white belts. Or you figure out who, as you're watching, so you're doing both things here. And you say, I'm going to try to just roll with it. Don't be afraid about asking like an upper belt. If you're at a gym where they don't allow you to ask an upper belt or someone that's above your rank to roll, that's probably not a good gym.
Right.
I'll just say it. I mean, I'm sure there's some out there that have that old rule, but that's silly. Also, saying no. What do you think about that? Saying no to people that are ranked above you.
Yeah, we've talked about this before.
Yeah, what's your 2 cents on that? Do you think it's appropriate? Do you have to say sorry?
It's your prerogative.
Yeah.
You're there to learn, right? And if that is not a situation, now don't be surprised if they're like, hey, I'm just curious. Is there a reason why you don't want to,
Yeah, be prepared for that question.
For sure.
Because it can be a little did I do something? Or,
exactly, because, the good training partners will self-reflect and be like, I wonder why he doesn't want to roll with me.
I had a black belt tell me no, and I was like, what the hell did I do?
Well,
not you.
It wasn't me.
No, you always say no.
No. I always try to.
No, it was at another gym. I've never rolled this guy, but I've seen him 4 times. We just never rolled.
Interesting.
And then I asked him, and he said no. I was,
all right.
Well, dang. So then, of course, I thought about it in the shower for the next 2 days. What do I say?
That's where you do all your deep thinking, isn't it?
Yes, of course. Well, toilet shower.
Yeah. Same.
Same. But yeah, it's one of those things where, and I never even asked him. I just didn't ask him again. And I've seen him 5 other times.
Well, that's your at the black belt level. You're like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're one of the safest people to roll with. Anybody that sees you roll, you're not. Yeah. So
that was why it was confusing. But
yeah, weird.
If I don't care if it's a black belt that's asking you to roll, if you don't want to roll with him, say no.
Yeah.
Does not matter.
Yeah.
How do you say no in a way that's not awkward?
You lie.
Say, I'm taking this around.
Do you notice Bill didn't even hesitate? That was right there.
Because we always say you can say no, but then I feel like we never give how do you say no?
I used to be self-conscious about saying no.
No, but you can do that.
And
you can say
anymore.
you can say I'm really not feeling it right. You can just you can say
If it's someone that I know rolls hard and I just don't got it in me, I just say I don't got it in me, bro.
Yeah.
It's a compliment.
Yeah.
It means you're a tough round.
Yeah.
I've said no to Casey so many damn times because I just don't got it in me. Sorry. It is what it is. I've said no to Mo.
I don't say no to Casey, but I'm like, I'm gonna get smushed.
And to me, I'm like, and I think that's great.
It is awesome.
But I like my training schedule, and I want to train the next day because that's how much I train. So he doesn't pass around your legs. He passes through your body.
Yeah. It's amazing. I love it.
So I love it too. I love watching it.
From the sidelines.
But I'm just using him as an example, and people obviously don't even know Casey, but he's a very strong fellow with great wrestling and good jiu-jitsu. But
in all fairness, though, I've never been hurt. I mean, he's also someone I'm not worried about getting hurt with. It's just when you're at a certain level of exhaustion or whatever, that's a tough.
But the thing is, when someone has that much horsepower, accidental injuries happen.
Sure.
Which we've seen.
Yeah.
So it's...
And if somebody says, well, we can just flow roll. You can be like, brother, your phone.
And I could just not drink 6 beers tonight,
or have ice cream, you mean?
Or previous life that was me. Yeah. But I could just only eat 1 bowl of cereal. No, I ate 2 last night.
He mixes cereal too. It's weird.
Oh, you got to put me on blast? I do. I like to put 2 different cereals in the same bowl.
That's all right.
Thank you.
You're embracing your junk food.
It's not junk food. It's cereal.
It's junk food.
It's Chex.
Okay, I've never used the official doctor thing to override you. It's junk food. And show me how it isn't.
I bought it at a co-op.
Okay.
It's organic.
Oh, here's a perfect example.
And it's gluten-free.
Perfect example.
Gluten-free organic. Eat that.
I will not.
Take your Johns Hopkins plaque. Burn it.
Yeah. It's nonsense, dude. It's devoid of nutrition.
How would you say no? What's a couple tips on telling someone no?
Who am I?
Let's say you're a white belt.
And who is the person asking me?
Another white belt.
Okay.
We'll start there and then we'll.
Yeah. I mean, you can say, I'm not looking to roll right now with that,
but
that
you're
type of
gonna
intensity.
roll.
No, with that type
else.
of, that type of intensity right now. I'm just trying to, it's one of those days today, man. I'm just trying to, I said, you're a real tough roll. And I'm just trying to, right now, I'm just really tired. And I'm when I get fatigued, sometimes, that's when injuries tend to happen to me.
Yeah. Would you assume their gender like that and say, man, hey man, I'm not rolling, man?
If you want to bring that up and you're calling an old dude out right now. No, sure. It could be, we'll be inclusive for sure.
Thank you.
Because I guarantee my wife can hand people their butts sometimes on the mat. So
what about, if it's someone that outranks you? Would you treat that any differently?
A little bit.
How so?
Probably a little more diplomatic.
And how would that look?
Yeah, it depends on the person, man. Man. Depends on the person.
Ma'am, I said that before.
I know. Sorry,
So I'll let you noodle on that, but I think when it's the white belt, I think that's a perfect way to say it. Is I just don't got it in me today. I'm just not looking to roll hard today, because that gives you the opportunity to still roll someone else and not feel guilty.
Right.
Like where you're like, well, I just told them I'm not going to roll. And then you feel like you can't do any rounds because then they're going to see you. And then
they're
it's
like, hey, what's up with that?
Exactly.
What if this person comes up to you and asks you every time and you never want to roll with them? Can you give the same reason every time?
You can, but the thing is, as Chris has already said, anticipate a question coming at some point. Hey man, why don't you ever roll? Why don't you ever roll with me? And that's just when you got it all. You already know why. And as the great Cheryl Walker would say, honesty is the best policy. And he's like, you know what? You're a tough round. And I just...
Wait, can you go back and quote Cheryl Walker again?
Honesty is the best policy.
So if we rewound about 5 minutes, your response to one of her questions was, you lie.
Okay, not in every scenario.
Okay.
You lie first.
Just interesting juxtaposition.
Tell the truth later.
I see.
You staying with me?
I'm with you now. Just had to clarify that.
Gosh, you're full of something today. So probably checks. The cinnamon ones are the best. Just putting it out there. So just know that they're going to ask questions, and you straight up just tell them like, hey, you roll intense, and I'm not quite there yet. I just don't feel like I'm technically there, especially if you're at the lower levels. It really makes sense. An upper belt. I think it's even better to just be straight up honest.
You know what the response might be? Like, hey, I understand where you're coming from. I tell you what, this is what we're going to do this role. If you're comfortable with it, I will, we can work on
You're saying if it's an upper belt.
Yeah, the upper belt can come back and actually make it mutually beneficial and be like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I tell you what, this is what we'll do.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah. And I think,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And when you say something to them about like, man, this is you white belt to someone outranks you, or even if you're a blue belt and someone outranks you, whatever. I feel like I'm just a wasteful round for you. You just beat my ass. It just, yeah. So what that kind of tells that person is, well, chill out. Like I've literally had someone say that to me, and I was like, well, when I roll with them, I shouldn't maybe I throttle back a little bit.
Exactly.
And give them like an enjoyable round.
That's right.
It's like a kind of a way to let them know.
That's what we should do with our training partners anyway. And that's
Right.
what we all try to do as upper belts and black belts, is try to roll. And I think we have a good role model for this with our professors, roll just above the level of them and give them some room to kind of work some stuff.
I think that kind of goes into another question that was out there, wasn't there? Like, what's the responsibility?
Yes. So, what's the role of upper belts in looking out for lower belts, or just 2 lower belts?
Yeah. So what does that role look like, or is there a role?
There's definitely a role.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as looking out for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not only with yourself and rolling with them, but part of the culture of the gym, especially if you see something really unsafe happening between two, you can take them aside and say, hey guys, I like this. I love the intensity. It's great. But what just happened here, I've seen people really get injured doing that. And these are our training partners here. We're trying to, right?
Yeah.
I think that is absolutely in your purview.
Yeah.
When you notice that, because the professor can't be everywhere at once. Just can't. And relies on more seasoned upper belts to recognize some of that stuff and diplomatically say, hey, there absolutely should be a role with that. And also mentoring them.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. People, and we all have different personalities. There's certain people that you gel with better than others just because we're people. That's just how things are. Some people are, and if you have people that are, will come to you almost like a little mentoring role and ask, hey, I was trying to work on, that's a very good thing to happen, to have a couple folks that they know they can come to you with questions. And then if you don't know, you can, hey, I'll refer you over. But that kind of mentorship is really important. And it not only just with instruction and kind of helping them along with their journey, but also safety.
Yeah. Yeah, we all had, as you've been in the gyms longer and longer, you always had, we've all been helped.
Oh, all the time.
So it's good to return that favor.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you got to put your own roles aside, and as in sparring rounds.
Yep.
And help someone. That's
as a black belt, I think it's very important.
Yeah.
That's just my personal. I think
because it's very easy to get sucked in. I'm just going to do my rounds and get.
Because then you look, that becomes because this really, the academy is not a completely selfish thing, right? I think it is an obligation.
It's hard to get good without a partner.
It really is, and it's also that can pay dividends too. Because if you have some lower belts you're working with, those are perfect people to work with new things yourself on.
Yeah.
Right. So you can make this mutually beneficial. I think it's really important for any good, healthy culture of a jiu-jitsu academy to have that cadre of upper belts that will look out and hey, I noticed you did this. Are you interested? I can show you some things if you'd like, instead of going over there, stop what you're doing. I want you, the approach is really important too.
Yeah. And I think, it's a different kind of mat enforcer. It's like a mat, sheriff almost, where if you don't feel because there's some gyms that you might be at and you're who can I talk to? I don't know who the heck I can talk to about this, right? That happens. Maybe you're newer at the gym. Maybe no one really pops out to you as who you can talk to. And maybe you are a blue belt and up, and you don't even realize who can talk to people. I see stuff. Well, maybe you, You know, maybe that's you. Maybe you can actually you don't have you're not going to be a mat enforcer where you're like, okay, you see a spazzy white belt beating up on a smaller person or something like that.
No.
You don't have to be the one that goes in there and puts it on them. To
Nor should you.
Well, sometimes.
Yeah, but unless right? you're I don't think that's your job to look for that as like a blue belt.
Oh, okay.
As a blue belt,
Yeah. No. Yeah, sure. Well, but there are sometimes the thing is a blue belt can be an enforcer.
I'm not saying they can't.
Oh, okay, because some part of the enforcer thing is like you have like different kinds, and then you have your sneaky one, which is like typically someone that's not a super like a brown or black belt. They're actually lower, but they're tough as nails. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, that person needs to be humbled a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you send that Alan Badley after
you send them, right? But they don't take it upon themselves.
Sure,
that's all I'm saying.
But if you see that stuff, maybe you're the one that can be the one that actually like
watching out,
and watches out and talks to people and takes note of like, you know what, we don't have many females in our gym. But I'm not saying us, but like,
let's just say hypothetically,
or not a ton of small people, but we're seeing some come in and they're not sticking around. Maybe you've try to take note of who would be a safe person to roll with. So you can point out to the new person that's trying class out, hey, you should roll with that guy. You should roll with that girl.
Or take it upon yourself to put yourself in that position.
100%.
Yep.
I think that can be really helpful because I know we at our gym, we roll hard. Totally. I've been to other gyms, friendly gyms that we roll hard. But it doesn't mean it has to be like this thing, this stigma of like I can't say no to rounds because I'm going to be looked at like a puss. Mm-hmm. People are going to think I'm a weenie. I'm kind of scared to roll. Like you shouldn't have all these feelings. You know what I mean? You can still have hard rounds, but have a safety element in place. And the thing is, especially when a gym gets to a certain size, that's where the community has to come in.
Absolutely.
And if you're at a gym right now and you're thinking, like, I don't know who I would ask who's safe or not. Like,
you can see though. Let's say let's say you're just new to the place and you see a brown belt walking around helping people, or they seem very like, you can just tell by the interactions they're having. Be a people watcher with that. Right?
I would say even if you know, like, if you identify that there's a couple, like a married couple, ask the husband and the wife.
That's a great idea.
Because most likely they've talked about, because this is what basically every married couple does on the drive home, is who's safe and who's not.
Yep.
I don't want you to roll with that guy because I know he's just too spazzy. I don't want you to get hurt.
Right.
Or she tells him, that guy was a little rough.
Yep.
In situationals. It wasn't even sparring. So you got kind of forced into going with someone that you're not, you wouldn't usually go with. And then you find out that person's way too rough.
Yep.
Through situationals, which you just kind of got stuck with.
What do you do if you're forced into a situation like situationals, where there's no one? Because at our gym, Andrew or we are even able to choose like the ladies are, let's say. But what if there's no one there to be like, okay, I'm not going to have you go with this person. I'm going to have you go with this person because they're, as a female. What do you do in that situation?
I think we talked about this before too. If there's some particular people that you're worried about, I think we talked about this in a couple episodes ago about actually kind of like being upfront with whoever the instructor is. Like, I'm really kind of, just be very honest. Right now, I'm really hesitant to roll with,
And don't worry about thinking that they're going to think you're a weenie, because I can understand that. I dropped into a lot of gyms, the vibe with an instructor, or especially like MMA gyms. This is like very stereotypical. Who gives a shit? You're the customer,
right?
You're paying to be there,
right?
You just say something. And if they don't react well, then that's a perfect sign that it's not that it's a bad gym. It's just not a good fit.
Not for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with
there
that.
Isn't. We're in a great situation now with the growth of jiu-jitsu where there are a lot of academies.
Yeah. To answer your question, Liv, if I'm at the front of the line and I see someone I'm not trying to go with, I literally just say, hey, they're open. I'm going to do the next one. I just look at the next person, say, and I've had this. Well, why not? I've had
that say that to me too.
Yeah. I'm just going to go to the next one. You just repeat yourself. And there's so much pressure because it's like, okay, keep going, that they can't just harass you and like turn into a lawyer and question you on the stand. Yep. It's like, I'll just do the next one. I'm going to go with someone else.
I feel like one time that happened, but I don't remember. It was a while ago, but it was while I was a purple belt. I was like, oh, but you're a purple belt. And I'm like, what does that have to do?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
What does that have to do with
I
safety?
had a guy do that because it was situationals, and I was a blue belt, and I had just got my blue belt, and Olivia was still getting comfortable to like me rolling with females and stuff like that. And there was a female down, and I didn't know her, and so we had a thing back then where it was like, oh, if we don't know the person, I'm just not going to roll with them. Okay. So it comes up, and I'm like, here, go ahead to this purple belt, and he starts giving me. Right there. Put down that time. He starts giving me crap right there. He's like, you're a blue belt. I'm like, yeah, I'm just because my wife, I want to make her comfortable. He goes, yeah, but you're a blue belt. What?
Some people's perception is not where yours is at.
Yes. and I was like, I mean, I don't know what to say. Sorry.
Yep.
And he had the stinkiest damn gi I've ever smelled. So that tells you the kind of person he is.
I don't know why other people care so much about what you do.
Yeah.
Like, why do you care?
Yeah. I was going to tell him I'm Muslim.
Boy, that's a freaking 2-hour conversation now, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of people care what you...
So,
yeah.
But that was right there.
Yeah.
So I've experienced the shaming that people can be afraid of, but whatever. That doesn't matter. I know I get looked at a certain way because I reject Casey. Because I say no to certain roles, I know I get looked at a certain way in our gym.
And we talk about you.
I'm sure. I know it. That's the thing. I know that I get looked down upon because of that, but I don't care.
No.
Because the
people know you don't. I don't think anybody really cares.
Well, I don't think they care, but I know that they think a certain way about it. But it is what it is. It's my prerogative, and it is what it is. So I got past caring if people think negatively because I do that. As if you can do that earlier, it's even better for you. Because I used to care a lot, actually. But in that situational line, just saying, oh, just go ahead. And you just act nonchalant about it.
So I'm gonna interject myself and cause some drama here.
Dear.
I actually love Casey. I don't care what you think about him.
I love Casey too. It's a compliment.
I know. I'm just messing with
you. It's a compliment. He can go to any gym in the world.
I know.
And put it on black belts all day.
He's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. I'm just messing with you.
There's a bunch of those kind of guys.
Yeah, there are.
There's Alan. He's a blue belt. And I don't want to do every round with him.
Good God.
Sorry.
There's some killers, man.
Sorry. I'm a pussy. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
You got to strike that one too.
Do we?
Yeah. I don't know.
Nah.
Do we?
Maybe.
I don't think. You could be talking about a cat.
I am talking about a cat.
You know what? Then you're going to open me right up, though. I'm just going to, all the floodgates are going to open. Remember, I'm repressing so much right now.
So, yeah. But if someone's listening to this and you don't know of someone that is helpful like that to small people, females, old people, noobs, be that person. Be that person that can kind of help out and point out, like, hey, just so you know, you don't have to spar, but if you're thinking about it, a couple of these people, the colored belts are the good ones. Like, don't spar with a white belt, you know? That's super helpful. Yeah. That helps people that helps people feel a lot more comfortable to the point where then they can do those hard rounds. And now you just got another training partner.
Exactly.
Which is fantastic.
I feel like our gym is really good about doing that, though. Like, whenever someone's new or like a female comes in, like, I know all of us will be like, okay, yeah, these are good. These are good. Like, I freely give it. I don't even wait for them to ask. Yeah.
And it's typically like, we're fortunate at the point of our gym that it's like, for the most part, we're just like, anyone that's not 40 pounds heavier than you and not a certain white belts is probably cool.
Yep.
It's a pretty easy rule of thumb
at our gym. It's really,
but it's taken a lot of time, obviously.
It sure has,
right?
But it's good though.
You know, we have 7 to 10 black belts any given day, and 5 to 10 brown belts, and 25 purple belts on the mat. So it's like it becomes, pretty easy when you have that much knowledge and skill and all that kind of stuff.
Agreed.
Is that it?
I think so.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Remember the TRT guys? Next episode, we be chatting.
Yep.
About that stuff.
And if there's questions, we'll see what Carrie's availability is. Worst case scenario, if she can't for whatever reason, I will pick her brain based on the questions being asked.
We'll go ask a guy at like a homeless dude outside QFC.
That usually that's where I give most of my medical advice, by the way.
Also, Quintet's coming up. We'll review that in the near future.
That's gonna be good.
It's like a month and a half away, but that's the best jiu-jitsu event. Basically, most entertaining in my opinion.
I do too. I think
good team event.
I think it's great.
Big teams.
Cool. All right.
Like, subscribe, comment, send us an email. Love letters. Bye-bye.
Later.